Hi everyone, this is Whitney and welcome back to an episode of Spastic Chatter. If you're new here, Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the cerebral palsy community, and I get together with individuals with CP like myself to have an uncensored chat, if you will, about what it's like living with this type of disability. And for this episode, I have with me Nick, and I found him on TikTok. He he has he has a lot of videos around like caregiving and things like that. He has 56,000 followers, and like he just seemed like he'd be a cool person to interview and have an uncensored chat with, if you will. So I will let Nick introduce himself and then we will get on to the conversation. So take it away, Nick.
Hi, Whitney. Hi, everyone in the Spastic Chatter community. I'm so glad to be here with you. My name is Nick Comstock. I live here in Columbus, Ohio, and I've been in Columbus. It'll be 4 years since I moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I have what they call CMV, cytomegalovirus. What I tell people is that it's just a part of the cerebral palsy family. I also have octave atrophy, which is nerve damage in both of my eyes, which causes me to be legally blind. So my vision is at 2200, and I wear glasses. And when people try to put on my glasses for fun, they're like, "Holy shit, Nick, you're blind," and I am. So yeah, but I don't let my disability get me down or stop me from accomplishing my goals. um and that's what I encourage people to do on my TikTok. I encourage to live life to the fullest even though you have a disability. So I'm hoping that our episode today will encourage more people to do the same. So
Awesome. I'd like to like kind of take it back to like your origin story, if you will, with social media. What made you want to share your life on TikTok? Like what got you started?
well, what got me started was I was on YouTube for 7 years, and I had something called Smile Through Your Trial at first, and then that really wasn't taking off, and I was trying to encourage people to have a good attitude even though they have a disability. And to be honest with you, when I started Smile Through Your Trial, I was trying to do more of a Christian based thing, because I am a Christian, but it really wasn't taking off. And plus, I wasn't smiling through a lot of my trials. So I felt it kind of hypocritical, if you will, to tell people to do the same thing when I was really struggling to do the same thing. So then I switched it over a couple years after I started Smile Through Your Trial to the Wheelchair Network. And then that just wasn't panning out. And so then I started the Nicholas Comstock show, and that wasn't panning out. And my friend Daniel encouraged me at the end of 2021, and they were like, "Hey, get on TikTok." And so I started, I believe, in the pandemic, like November of 2019, and then the pandemic happened. And then I didn't get back on until the end of 2021. And by the end of 2022, I had over 50,000 followers. So here we are. And I finally found my niche.
Awesome. I love how it started with YouTube and then it kind of morphed its way to TikTok like that. That's kind of similar to myself. I started sharing my life on YouTube, and then I in today's age, I feel like the shorter videos like on TikTok and stuff do better than
They do.
long form YouTube videos. Um,
Absolutely.
but one after watching some of your TikToks, one area that you tend to highlight and I would say the majority of the videos that I watch is your experience with having attendant care and a caregiver come in and that's one area that is not discussed enough in the disability community as a whole. What was that like? What made you want to decide to discuss your caregiving and all those intimate details on social media?
Well, you know what? I think it had to do with, me getting out on my own and me sharing my whole journey because growing up, Whitney, I was told that I would never be able to move out on my own. I would never be able to have my own apartment. I was told I would never be able to be in a romantic relationship, because there would be no one out there who would want to take care of someone like me. And so I think it was just once I got on my own, okay, I'm going to share my story now. And, I've been told by many case managers, Nick, you're not the only one. And until I started getting on TikTok and sharing my struggles, with caregivers showing up late, caregivers just wanting to sit on their phone all day, until I got in and started sharing my story, I didn't realize that there are so many people out there struggling with the same thing. And so now I know that I'm not alone, and that's what helps me continue to share my story, because I know I'm not alone. And I know that there are people that would love to be able to speak up and say the same thing, but they either physically can't or they're too afraid to. So, that's why I'm here.
I love that. I love that you're like bringing an advocacy spin to it. Uh, like I had caregivers when I turned 18 and decided to move out on my own, but that was after I got the backfin pump, and when I uh just a short little um insight into my story. I got the backfin pump at 18, and from like 18 to now at 33, I went from having to rely on a caregiver to being almost fully independent. So I've lived both per, both perspectives, where having to have full care, and then um and then being I say
Left
almost
alone.
fully independent, because I'm not like I'm not fully independent. I still have to have a little bit of help. But I vividly remember the struggle of of having caregivers, and like, don't get me wrong, there's those angels out there that are like, they're like awesome caregivers, but if I'm being frank, the majority of my time with caregivers was sort of a pain in the ass. Like,
Yes, absolutely. Hmm.
yeah, do you want to talk about um like sort of like what you went through getting care, and like what you go through on a daily basis, like if your caregiver doesn't show up, and like that kind of aspect of things. I don't think people think about that when they think about caregiving, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they really don't. And I get a lot of people on my TikTok, since now I have so many followers. I get a lot of people on my TikTok that say, Nick, all you do is complain about your caregivers. I never see you, tell a good story about a caregiver that you. That's because most of the really good caregivers are just there to do their job. They're not there to have their horn tooted. And also, I mean, I'm sorry if you're tired of me telling the truth. The truth is, I've had more bad experiences with caregivers than I have good. I
Yeah.
could probably count on both of my hands how many good caregivers I've had. That,
I
and you have.
I can literally count. I can literally count like literally two that out of I've had caregivers for like 5 years, and I can literally count two that were actually like good caregivers and like came in and did their job and like took care of me. The rest, there's like a high turnover for people with severe, with more severe like disabilities, and I'm not speaking like medically correct or whatever. So this is just my so excuse my language for those of you that are gonna come at me, but the more severe disabilities, I feel like there's a higher turnover. Do you kind of agree with that, or what's your take on that?
There is. Well, there's a higher turnover because when you're dealing with somebody who has severe mental challenges and severe behavior issues, and if you're dealing with somebody that hits, kicks, and bites their staff, I mean, you really have to, have a calling and have the patience to deal with that. And there's just a lot of people out there who don't. I tell caregivers all the time, we need to stop looking at the caregiving field as a job, because it's not a job. Okay, it's a job. Let me correct that, because I know there are some people that are going to come at me, but it's a job. It's a job, and it's a very hard job. But it's not a job where you work at Walmart from 9 to 5 and you can go home and forget about it the next day. You're dealing with people's lives. So that's why I say it's not a job, it's a calling. You have to be called to do this. And if you're just looking at this job for a paycheck, you need to go work at a factory somewhere, because you're not going to get a decent caregiving job. You're not going to get a decent pay, especially if you do Medicaid funding or any type of insurance funding. You're not going to get a decent pay for a caregiving job unless you do private pay. So if that's what you're in the field for, and oh, by the way, if those of you are out there saying, well, I'll just go get my STNA or my CNA and that'll bump me up. No, it'll only bump you up a couple bucks, and you'll still be saying this isn't enough. So if you're here for the money, you really need to sit down and reevaluate why you became a caregiver. Because if it's only for the paycheck, do us all a favor and retire or resign, whatever age you're at.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious. I started thinking this like when you were talking. Because you have such a large platform, and that's one of the things that you like that you talk about. Have you ever had a caregiver like watch your TikToks and then decide and then like ask you about them, or like decide not to work with you because of your TikToks?
I can say no to that, but my caregiver actually watches my TikToks, and he'll say, I don't know if I agree with what you said there, or or what have you, or I don't think that's correct, but it's your opinion, Nick, so you can say whatever you want. And so we've had discussions about it, but I'm at a place now where I do have a staff who's, with me, 24/7. He takes a couple hours break, actually, because he's the only staff that's working with me during the week. And so if he doesn't take a couple hours break, we'll probably end up killing each other, to be quite frank. So, and we get along really well. His wife likes to say, Nick and his caregiver fight like an old married couple, and we do. So, yeah.
So you only have one caregiver right now. Is that correct?
So I have one caregiver who does the majority of the hours during the day, and then I have another caregiver. I actually work with the owner of the agency. That's how small it is. So I have one caregiver who does like all my daily tasks and all my appointments and everything like that. And then I have a caregiver 3 nights a week that comes in outside of the owner, and then another caregiver during the night. And then so yeah, it's basically maybe 3 caregivers, depending on if one of them calls off at night or if one of them calls off. And then if one of them calls off, he's usually the one that does the shift. So, and like I said, they only have about 7 employees, and a lot of them actually won't work with me because I need personal care. I have to have somebody clean me up when I go to the bathroom and stuff like that. And a lot of his caregivers don't want to do that. That's another thing I want to say. If you're a
Yeah.
caregiver out there thinking that you're not going to have to deal with somebody's bodily fluid at some point, you need to probably go get another job. You say, well, I work in day services and I don't have to deal with that. Well, what if someone in day services throws up? Are you going to let them sit in their throw up? So you're going to have to deal with somebody's bodily fluid at some point, I do believe. Now, I know my caregivers probably going to hear this and disagree because, like I said, we do disagree on some stuff. But yeah, if you're a caregiver and you don't like dealing with bodily fluid, I would again reevaluate why you're a caregiver, in my opinion.
I think it's also up to the agency, unless you're like consumer directed, that they adequately go through all the help that the consumer is going to need. Like if you need help like wiping or things like that in the bathroom, like I think all of the tasks should be laid out before the caregiver starts.
Right.
If they're not comfortable doing anything like related to the bathroom or anything like that, that's taken care of in the initial meeting. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
I've had a caregiver that worked for me, worked with me, and like they were like different shifts. So I would go to the bathroom and one caregiver would help me, but then just so happened like one day the second shift, I went to the bathroom during the second shift, and I had a caregiver literally tell me, well, so and so won't be able to do this because they don't like bodily fluids. Just letting you know. And I was like, well, that should have been brought up in the interview. Like, I can't help. I can't help that you have to do this. Like that's not my problem. That should have been brought up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an issue too when I first started going with my current caregiver. When we hired the second one on that does 3 nights a week, my current caregiver was actually coming back to do like brief changes and stuff like that because the one caregiver couldn't handle it. And I was like, but this is the house he signed up for. This is what he has to do. You can't cater to him.
Yeah.
And you know that you don't have a lot of staff that can't, that don't want to or whatever. So, and another thing too, caregiving agencies, just because you want to get the money from the state to provide services, don't take on a client that you can't staff.
Yeah.
And don't promise us the moon and then give us storm clouds, because then you're gonna have a lot of living hell from guardians and clients because they're not being properly cared for. So be sure that you're able to staff the people that you're taking on.
Yeah. I have two questions related to like
Sure.
that I want to bring up. Do you live in a rural area, or are you like in a city?
No, I live in Columbus, Ohio. So I live on the east side of Columbus. And I know it's harder because I used to live in a rural area in Mansfield, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I know it's harder for the rural areas. In
Yeah.
fact, I
And
was just, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna I was gonna bring that up that we live in a rural area, and like I was mentioning before this, like my boyfriend just got approved for attendant care, and there's literally one agency in our area, one.
Oh my God, that's terrible. Yeah, before we started taping today, I had a meeting with my county case manager, and he was telling me that I don't remember where he said, but it was right on the Ohio West Virginia border. Um, that in that particular county, they only have 11 agencies. And if a client goes through all 11 agencies and still can't find somebody, then you're basically shit out of luck.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's really bad. And I tell clients and families all the time, don't nitpick with your caregivers. Don't call the office, because they didn't fold your blanket the right way or shut your refrigerator door or,
yeah.
stuff like
You have
that.
to pick and choose. You have to pick and choose your battles, and like it's not like a caregiving is like a maid. Like they're there to help you live like a fulfilling life. They're not there to uh, I don't know how to. I kind of lost my train of thought, but you get what I'm saying. Like they're not like you were saying that uh if they didn't fold your blankets correctly, that just reminds me of like a hotel staff or something
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I've talked to a lot of, and I've had a lot of African American caregivers, and I have an African American caregiver right now. And they say to me, Nick, I've had my clients treat me like a slave. And that is not what they're there to do. They're there to serve you and provide
No.
a service, but they're they're human too. So we need to treat them with as much respect and love as we possibly can because the pay isn't what it should be, although that is not your fault. I do believe that they are doing good work and they need to be respected as such.
Yes,
So,
totally. Is there anything that we did not bring up in regards to caregiving that you would want to touch on?
well, as far as caregiving, I would say caregivers put yourself in your client's shoes. If you're one that constantly shows up 30 minutes late or 10 minutes late, realize that, especially if you're taking care of a client that depends on you to get out of bed, it's a big deal to us if you come in late because we have schedules and lives too and routines that we would like to keep going. And just because you feel like coming in late, that's pretty inconvenient and disrespectful to us. And if you say, well, I have kids and I got to drop them off at school, then don't sign up for an early morning shift.
Yeah,
Sign up for a shift to where you can meet the client's needs and meet your needs as well.
yeah,
But, you know, put yourself in your client's shoes and be like, well, how would I feel if I had to have someone wipe my butt every day? Or how would I feel if I had to have someone shower me every day? You
yeah,
know, and once you do that, I feel like you'll have a better perspective and you'll do your job a lot better.
exactly.
So
I kind of want to end this episode on a high note. So, what are some of your goals that you have right now?
well, I'm in the process of trying to start my own business, and what I would like to do is uh become a public speaker. I've done several public speaking events in person and online. So I'm trying to start my own business because I've been told by 2 states and 3 different counties that I'm unemployable because of my disabilities. So I've just decided to do it myself. And so I'm out here pounding the payment. And I have a passion to want to not only be an advocate for people with disabilities, but be an actor and be on television and be in radio. So if there's anyone out there listening that has spots out there, if you have another podcast like Whitney's and you would like to have me come on your podcast, my TikTok email is nickspeaksofficial@gmail.com, and you can email me. I'm going to give all this information to Whitney and she's going to link it up for me.
Yep.
My TikTok is at Nicholas Comstock. And so it's Nicolas. My name does not have an H in it. Tell a lot of Nicholases. And I'm also doing a GoFundMe fundraiser for to get my own handicap van so that I don't have to rely on public transportation and home health care agencies, because they just don't, and public transportation sometimes isn't really accessible for people with disabilities, and home health care agencies don't, a lot of them don't have handicap accessible transportation. So that's why I've started a $50,000 fundraiser for my own vehicle, and I'll give you that information as well. But so yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I'm trying to do.
Awesome. Well, at the end of every episode, I ask my guests if they have any advice for those watching, any kind of like life advice, general advice, caregiving advice, anything. Is there anything that you want to leave the viewers with, Nick?
Yeah, so my advice to people with disabilities as well as their family members is don't look at that person's disability as their life is over. In many cases, our lives are just beginning, and our disability does not mean that we can't have a normal, fulfilling life as someone who is able-bodied. Like I said at the beginning, I was told I would never move out and never have a romantic relationship. Well, I've accomplished both those things. And so when you put your grit to it in life, and when you dig in your heels, you can accomplish anything you want. It doesn't mean that it's going to come overnight, but you will eventually get to where you want to go if you're determined. So
Awesome. Well, it was nice talking with you, Nick, and it was a very meaningful conversation, and one that needs to be heard. Again, thank you for being on. And if you're watching this episode and you want to be on a guest on Spastic Chatter, feel free to leave a comment wherever you are seeing or listening to this, and I'd love to have you. So check back frequently for another episode, and I will see everyone in the next episode.
thanks for having me, Whitney. It's been great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.